Until Dawn uses slasher conventions, isolated mountains, teens in danger, and quick-time survival, but transforms them through interactivity. My analysis uses genre theory to show how horror conventions shape the player's instincts that push them towards self-preservation and genre-coded smart choices that actually align with antagonist logic.
My section explores how mythic structures like the hero narrative, archetypes, and cultural expectations of rescue are weaponized. Until Dawn sets up a myth where the player believes they can save everyone, only to twist that myth into a trap that guides the player toward moral failure.
And I analyze how the game uses psychoanalytic design. Dr. Hill sessions create a split subject, the butterfly effect exposes unconscious impulses, and the Wendigo externalizes the player's own destructive drives, making the player the psychological engine of harm.
Until Dawn frames its whole experience around the promise that every choice matters. On the surface, this feels heroic, players believe they can rescue all the 8 characters, but this continues to mythic casualty, the cultural assumption that good choices produce good outcomes.
But genre theory reveals how horror conventions twist this logic. Slasher narratives reward suspicion, splitting up, and self-preservation. The game subtly encourages the same behaviors, not because they are moral, but because they fit genre survival logic.
However, psychoanalysis exposes the deeper trap. The butterfly effect system creates delayed, disproportionate, unpredictable outcomes. A comforting gesture creates suspicion. A cautious choice triggers danger. This mirrors Freud's claim that our conscious intentions rarely match our true motivations. As players begin with moral intentions, then shift towards curiosity. Trying new routes, replaying decisions, and testing consequences becomes a death drive, a compulsive push towards symbolic destruction.
So, the butterfly effect is not simply a branching system, it is the mechanism that reveals how the player gradually becomes the antagonist through instinct, genre logic, and unconscious compulsion.
Dr. Hill interrupts the story not to analyze the characters, but to analyze the player. His direct eye contact and confrontational tone creates a Lacanian mirror, forcing players to confront an uncanny version of themselves.
This is where the myth of heroism collapses. Where players imagine themselves as moral decision makers, Hill exposes them as fearful, inconsistent, and driven by instinct.
He profiles the player's fears, clowns, needles, darkness, and the game later rematerializes these fears into the narrative, proving that the player's unconscious mind helps construct the same horror that they are playing.
Genre theory also intersects here. Horror often destabilizes identity, but Until Dawn pushes this further by making the player the unstable identity.
The result is that Dr. Hill does not just judge the player, he reframes them as morally unreliable. His accusation,
"What gives you the right to play God?"
reveals the truth. The game positions the player as someone who believes they're the hero, but acts with the detached experimentation of a villain.
The Wendigo is the final mechanism transforming the player into the villain. From a genre perspective, it is a terrifying slasher monster, fast, almost invincible, and perfectly tuned to jump scare logic.
From a myth perspective, it draws on Algonquin stories of hunger, possession, and moral corruption. The Wendigo is formed through violation, just as the narrative branches mutate through risky player decisions.
From a psychoanalytic perspective, the Wendigo is the player's shadow. The Wendigo consumes compulsively, the player chooses compulsively. The Wendigo loses self-control, fear destabilizes player agency. The Wendigo acts on buried drives, the player experiments with dangerous outcomes. The monster is not just something you fight, it becomes a representation of destructive impulses driving your curiosity. By the time the Wendigo appears, the player has already made fatal decisions, tested moral boundaries, and sacrificed characters just to see. The creature only competes with what the player has already set in.
In all 3 elements, Until Dawn doesn't just give the player choices. It structures those choices so that the moral failure becomes the most logical path. The butterfly effect system sets up branching consequences that quietly encourage self-preservation over empathy.
And genre conventions reinforce that structure. Horror frames uncertainty as danger, strangers as threats, and hesitation as death. You start acting within genre logic, which means that you instinctively adopt behaviors that align with an antagonist, and even when you think you're just playing smart.
And the psychological design pushes this even further. Fear and time pressure narrow your moral reasoning. But the multiple possible outcomes do something even more subtle. They make you curious. You want to explore what happens if you push boundaries, test moral limits, or sacrifice someone just to see. The game turns exploration into justification, and that curiosity becomes a pathway to playing the villain.
so the player doesn't become the antagonist by accident.
They then become the antagonist because the narrative architecture sets moral traps and the genre normalizes harmful survival logic.
And the psychological system not only pressures you under fear, but also invites you to experiment with morally risky choices through its branching outcomes.
It's a coordinated system.
Narrative gives you mythic stakes, a world where every choice can condemn someone else.
Genre shapes your instincts, pushing you towards suspicion, sacrifice, and aggression.
And psychology validates those instincts, especially when you replay choices to see darker outcomes.